Hi everyone. Once again, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties with tonight's live stream. Part of the reason why I wanted to do a live stream rather than just record a video is because I wanted to try to encourage a little bit of interaction in these times when we're social distancing and maybe not being able to interact as much. So my intentions were there. Unfortunately, the technical abilities weren't quite there. Hopefully I can figure it out for another time. It said that my camera and my microphone were loading, and it seems like they never quite connected. So if anybody's a techie out there and has any insight, I'm more than willing to listen. I'm all ears. But I thought instead, rather than a live stream, I would still just go ahead and record a video talking about managing anxiety, and then upload it so people can access it at their leisure and still have the information available to them. Again, my most sincere apologies for the live stream portion not working. But if we're here talking about managing anxiety, this again is a little appropriate. Lots of anxiety that I was feeling in the past half hour or so trying to get this to work, and trying to balance it and not have it throw me off track. These are really difficult, unprecedented times. Our country hasn't really seen, probably in anybody who's living now in our lifetime, seen the sort of things that are happening in terms of stay-at-home orders and businesses and economies shutting down and everything. Whether you're particularly concerned and have anxiety directly about COVID-19, or if you're just kind of also worried about the effects, the economy, what is society going to look like, feeling socially isolated, not having those connections that you usually have. All of this is kind of under the big scope of anxiety and trying to manage it in these times. Hopefully we're about midway through April, and so hopefully May 1st, as the weeks and months tick on, hopefully we'll see some resuming of our economy, being able to do those things. I know especially here in Lake Havasu, it's a really nice time of the year, and people are wanting to get out and enjoy that with other people. I know back home where I'm from in Indiana, it was snowing today, so maybe not quite as much of a desire to get out and about in the Midwest, but still, it's difficult when you're not able to do something and you want to be able to do something. Anxiety. People don't like anxiety. Makes sense, understandable. It's not a fun feeling. It's not a great thing to feel anxious. Too much anxiety is really overwhelming. As we'll talk a little bit about body signals and everything, it can have ill effects on our body, our physical health too. So anxiety is definitely something to be managed, but anxiety is not necessarily something that should be extinguished or should be eliminated. Anxiety serves a purpose. Like all emotions, anger, sadness, happiness, excitement, fear. Some of these are more preferable than others, but they all serve a purpose in our hardwiring over generations and generations. They give us a signal that something is maybe off or something is not right or something good is going to happen. So again, a lot of people say, oh, I just want to stop feeling anxious. I get that, but I think the goal is to stop feeling overwhelmed with our anxiety rather than to stop feeling anxious completely. So to give you a little bit of information, I want to first talk a little bit about the brain's anxiety response and what is involved in all that. I'm a big believer in that knowledge is empowerment. So if we know more about how our brain works, about how depression, anxiety, addiction, trauma, all these things work in our brain, the better able we may be to help control it, to help heal, and to help feel a little bit empowered rather than having these emotions just wash over us and kind of feeling helpless about it. Three main parts, and I do want to note, I am not a neurologist, I am not a brain expert, but I am constantly learning. I'm very interested in the brain as it relates to our feelings and our emotions, and I'm constantly trying to get some more information. So I'm going to explain this at a very basic level, partially because that's really all we need for our purposes, and also because there's no way I could explain it at a higher level. I don't have that training, but three main parts of our brain that are involved in anxiety or our emotional process is our our cortex, which is up here, our upstairs brain, as we might call it, our amygdala, our downstairs brain, and I'm waiting for the day that I poke myself in the eye with this accidentally, but our amygdala is located, if you kind of go straight back with the eye and straight in with the ear, where those intersect, that's where our amygdala lie. We have two, one on each side. So we have our upstairs brain, we have our downstairs brain, and we have our brainstem where our reptilian fight, flight, or freeze systems really kick in. How these all work together is that our upstairs brain, our cortex, anxiety can originate from our cortex or it can originate from our amygdala. We're going to focus on cortex-based anxiety. A nice little hand motion that you can use to remember this is if you kind of put your thumb in and then put your fingers down. This is our cortex, our upstairs brain. This is where our thoughts process, our executive function. It takes in all of the senses, what we see, what we hear, the kind of visual and sensory stuff with memories. And then down here is our emotional base, the amygdala. And the hope is that the upstairs brain will hug and calm the amygdala and calm that down. Little kids, if you see them having tantrums, getting upset, the reason why that is because they just have their downstairs brain. Building the cortex, building coping skills, building the ability to have insight and see the bigger picture, that all comes with time and life experience as the brain grows. So if you don't have a really well structured, really well developed cortex, which doesn't typically happen fully until about 24, 25, then you're going to have problems managing your emotions. So this little I don't want to say diagram, but this little thing here comes from the book, The Whole Brain Child, by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. I don't know if you can see that there, but has a lot of good information about the child brain. Maybe I'll do an upcoming video some point talking about that as well. So we have these three portions in our brain. So what happens, especially right now, we start to think about things. We think, boy, you know, what's going to happen if I lose my job? Or what if I get the virus? What if I have to go to the hospital? What if? We call them the what ifs, and we kind of go down that rabbit hole. All these thoughts originate up here in our upstairs brain based on what we've seen, what we've heard, what our life experience has been. When we start to think distressing thoughts, that sends a signal down to the amygdala, and the amygdala starts to get going. The amygdala is where the emotion kicks in. So the amygdala says, oh, okay, there's something to be worried about. We need anxiety. We need to pump that out. That is our kind of reptilian brain kind of saying, fight, flight, or freeze. I need to survive. This anxiety, this feeling is telling me that I need to prep myself to survive and get through this. So once that amygdala starts going, it doesn't tell what's real or not. It doesn't know necessarily, oh, these are just what ifs. It's not really happening right now. It's just, you know, maybe what if. So the amygdala has no way to tell that. So what we're thinking, whether it's actually happening or not, is what our brain is reacting to. This is why we talk about the importance of positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. It's not just kind of feel good stuff and, well, you should be positive and you should have positive thoughts. It really does affect the structure of the brain and how your brain reacts, how your body reacts. Because once that amygdala starts going with an emotion, it sets into the lower brain, the reptilian brain, that fight, flight, or freeze. So we start to get worried about something. Our body shifts into our sympathetic nervous system, which controls our organs. It says, okay, you're nervous, so you know your breathing is going to get faster, your heart rate is going to get faster. Maybe you get kind of that tunnel vision where you can just focus on one thing. Your throat might get dry. Your body goes into automatic mode to preserve, to help you fight or flight in the system. Again, doesn't even have to be danger per se. All your lower brain, your downstairs brain, your amygdala knows is there's anxiety, there's fear, I need to go in and protect. I need to get through this. So knowing how that works together, knowing how our thoughts kind of impact where our emotions come from, that kind of leads us to knowing what kind of thoughts to have. If we can kind of pull back our thoughts and help ourselves kind of stop the emotion before it starts up. That's the thing too, is that once that amygdala is activated and once it sends that signal to fight, flight, or freeze, that can't be stopped and pulled back. That has to process through. That's why if people tell you, if you're anxious or worried or sad or angry about something, when people tell you, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be fine, don't be angry, calm down, everything will be good. It's very nice of them to try to comfort us, but it's not an effective response for a couple of reasons. One being, that's an upstairs brain intervention. Those are words that are coming through to process, to reassure us. But once that amygdala gets activated, this goes offline a little bit and that takes control. So those words, those nice comforting words with those great intentions, they're not going to come down to our amygdala. What has to happen is we have to calm our bodies in order to get through that amygdala processing, that fight, flight, or freeze, and get our upstairs brain back online so we can tell ourselves to calm down and have calming thoughts. Some different ways to do this. And there's a couple. Really, it's about our body, calming our body. Again, the sympathetic nervous system starts going, we start getting tense, we start getting nervous, our tummy might start to turn and all that sort of stuff. Once this starts, it has to process through. So one way we can get back on track with our parasympathetic nervous system is breathing. Therapeutic breathing is something I will admit I always kind of laughed about. I never really got like, okay, I breathe to live. I don't understand why this breathing is calming me down until I learned about the parasympathetic nervous system and how breathing helps us calm. If we breathe deeply and intentionally and slowly, what that does is that calms down our heartbeat. It calms us down. It gets us back on our homeostasis, our regular path, rather than that tense. So one way, there's a couple different ways, a lot of different methods that people use for therapeutic breathing. And if you have a certain method that you really enjoy, I encourage you to go with that. One of the key things, though, like I said, is slow and deep. Again, if we're breathing really tense and really heavily and shortly, that's going to speed up our heart. That's going to get us really nervous. So we want to do the exact opposite. One of the techniques that I've always liked to use, it's one of the first techniques of breathing that I learned, is called 4-square breathing. And it's pretty much what it says. What you want to do, and I'm going to make a little square for you here, is you want to breathe in for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and hold it for 4 counts. So it'll look like and again, depending on how fast you count on your 4s and everything, it may look a little different. But again, the big thing is to do that repeatedly, slowing your breathing down, getting back on track. Some people say they don't like to hold their breath. That makes them more anxious. If that's the case for you, then absolutely you don't have to do the in-between, the holding for 4 counts. Again, this is about finding what works for you and reducing anxiety, not creating anxiety. So some people will even just do a simple breathe in to where you kind of really feel it in your belly. And breathe out like that. Just something very, very simple, very slow and measured, and again, really kind of filling and releasing. That sort of breathing will, like I said, help calm down your heartbeat, send that signal back up to the amygdala to say, okay, we're good, we're fine, we're okay, no need to be concerned. And then, like I said, your upstairs brain will be able to come back online and you'll be able to use ration and logic to figure out how to deal with the situation. Exercise is also a really good way to calm and to get that parasympathetic nervous system back online. Again, another one of those things I always heard, oh, exercise helps with your mental health. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not a big exercise person, But again, knowing the scientific reasoning behind it, it's really kind of seen me in a different light and made me more open and willing to use that as a resource. Again, if you're in fight or flight, your body's ready to go. It's ready to run. It's ready to engage in some sort of physical activity. So if you give it that release, do exercising, running, jumping jacks, squats, elliptical rower, whatever, swimming, that gives that sympathetic nervous response a release. And then after you do it for a while, you feel a little bit better. That energy has been expended and you're better able to kind of come back online and think through things in a rational way. Some of the other things, like I said, breathing, exercise, progressive muscle relaxation is another sort of thing to kind of help our body calm and help ease the tension. If we notice ourselves getting really tense with anxiety or worry, what we can do, and again, use caution with this, medical caution, but we kind of section out the muscles in our body, kind of starting with the top of our head, we go ahead and we squeeze it as tense as we can for 4 counts and then let it go for 4 counts. So looking like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then release 2, 3, 4. Then we move down to like our jaw and our chin, our shoulders and upper arms, our hands, our tummies, our bottoms, our upper legs, and then our lower legs and our feet. Again, tensing as tightly as we can for 4 counts and then releasing for 4 counts. And then at the end, doing the whole body together, tensing for 4 and then releasing for 4. What that helps is, again, it's a release for that sympathetic nervous system to kind of have that tension and release that, let that energy go and let the parasympathetic get back online. It also helps to let us know some people get tense in their bodies and they don't even realize it. It also helps us with a little bit of self-awareness that this is what it feels like when my body is tense. And this is what it feels like when my body is relaxed. So we're better able to be attuned to ourselves with that. So again, little explanation. I know I said we were going to focus on cortex-based anxiety, but I think it's important to give you some downstairs brain coping skills because, yeah, there's going to be times when maybe you don't control your thoughts very well and you go off and get anxious and that amygdala gets activated and your body gets ready to go. We have to let the process go through, but not all hope is lost. You can still have some coping skills and techniques to be able to let yourself calm down, let the body process what it needs to, and then come back online. And again, when I talk about these processes of upstairs brain thoughts, going to the downstairs brain, going to the base brain, and fight, flight, or freeze, this is all in a matter of milliseconds. This is automatic. These are not things that we think about or tell our brain to do. This is all happening quicker than a blink of an eye. So it's easy for things to kind of take over, emotions to kind of swirl in and take over. But, I always tell people, it's my belief that people say, well, I get sad or I get anxious or I get angry or whatever, and I can't control it. My thinking is we can control it. We are able, or at least, maybe control is too strong of a word, but we are able to manage our emotions. It's just we don't always have the tools or the know-how. We don't have the knowledge about how the brain works to be able to know how to manage that effectively. It's like having technical difficulties on your computer. If you don't know the ins and outs of the technology and what's going on, you're kind of at a loss. When I'm trying to get the live stream to go and work and everything, it's that feeling of helplessness. I don't know how the computer works. I don't know what the interface is. I don't know how to fix this because I don't know about it. So I just kind of let the situation happen. If I knew more about that, if I knew how these technology things work, then I'd have a little bit more to work with. I feel a little bit more empowered to get things back on the right track. And it's the same thing with your brain and how your emotions work. So hopefully I didn't bore you or lose you with a little bit of a science neurology lesson there. But I think it's really important. And like I said, empowering to kind of know what's going on in there. This doesn't necessarily have to control me. I can have knowledge and I can learn to better manage and control it. So keeping that in mind. Thoughts. We have thoughts all day, every day, some good, some bad, some conscious, some subconscious. That's just how our brains are. It's really easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole or go down a path, especially, like I said, in times like this. We hear so much on the news, we hear so much anecdotally, that it does kind of filter into our brain and kind of affects us. What we think, well, the news says this, so am I going to get sick? Am I going to die? What's going to happen? Am I ever going to be able to make money again? Am I going to be able to support my family? Am I going to be, all these thoughts, I think for a situation like we have, are really natural and normal. These are things that, yeah, of course, we need to consider, we need to be aware of. The hope is, though, like I said, just with emotions, that we control the thoughts and emotions, or we manage them rather than them controlling us. One way to kind of stop yourself from going down that rabbit hole of what if is something that we call thought stopping. And that's simply being mindful in the moment and recognizing what you're thinking. This is where body and mind can kind of interact, because you're sitting there, maybe thinking about things, worrying, wondering what's going to happen. And maybe you don't necessarily notice your thoughts, but you notice your body start to tense up a little bit. You notice, ooh, I don't really feel good with this. That's a sign to know, oh, okay, am I going down a rabbit hole here? I think I am. Let me stop. Let me redirect. Let me think about something else. Let me watch a really funny video. Let me work on this project I have to do. Let me go for a bike ride. Let me do something else to take my mind off of this thought. Some people say, well, that's avoidance. You shouldn't avoid things. You shouldn't. And I totally agree. But again, the more we go down that rabbit hole, the more worried we get, the more it's going to activate and it's going to overwhelm. Sometimes it's not a great time to be thinking. Maybe you're in the middle of a grocery store or in the middle of a meeting or something, and your thoughts start to wander and you start to get worried or anxious, and it's okay. It's not really the best time for me to be feeling this. I need to be focused over here. Thought stopping, taking a minute, being mindful, recognizing how you're feeling in your body and how you're feeling in your mind, and redirecting to something else can be really beneficial to get you through that. Another thing is reframing. This is what people might call looking on the bright side of things, I guess. Sometimes if we think about all these worrisome things, what's happening, I'm not at work, I don't know what's going to be going on, kind of thinking about it in a different way rather than the negative, being able to say, yeah, this is a really tough, uncertain time. I don't like not knowing what's going on. That being said, I'm getting to spend a little bit more time with my family, and I'm going to take advantage of this, and I'm going to, strengthen those bonds, and I'm going to make some really good memories. Doesn't deny the fact that it's a scary, uncertain time in some ways, doesn't deny the reality of what's going on, but instead of focusing our attention and our thoughts on the negative, instead we focus on the positive. Instead of focusing on things that we maybe can't control right now, it lets us take control and lets us be empowered to shape our experience in a positive way, the way that we want to shape our experience, not being a slave to the experience of what's happening. So reframing can be really good. And like I said, thinking about what you can and can't control. None of us that I'm aware of can control the spread of COVID-19 or any, the seasonal flu, anything like that. We can slow it. We can do things to try to do our part to stop spread as much as we can. But there's nothing we can do to control the situation. You and I cannot control the economy. We cannot control what is open and what is not. That's, I guess, another conversation for another time. You could go into that. But again, it's about thinking about what can I control and what can I not. Even in instances of regular anxiety or regular fear, anger, or any other emotion, so much heartache and frustration, I think, is caused by trying to control things that we can't control. And I don't blame anybody for that, because I do that too. I'm human. Man, I really wanted that job. Man, I really wanted to be with that person. Man, I really wanted to go there and do that. Sometimes some of those things are in our control, but we can't control other people and we can't control events. And learning how to accept that and just kind of let that go can really be beneficial for our mental health. Easier said than done. I know, believe me. That's the thing about a lot of mental health stuff. It's really kind of common sense. That being said, it's a lot of stuff that's easier said than done. It's like dieting or exercising in a way. Okay, yeah, I know I need to cut out this and I need to increase my activity, but actually having the initiative to do it when you're in patterns that are not that, it's a difficult thing to do. If you're trying to make changes, give yourself credit for it, because it is hard. I think we all have the capability to do it. It's just there's a lot of different factors that kind of come into play as well. And if we can overcome some of those factors, we can live a healthier, more productive life physically and mentally. So, again, thinking about what you can and can't control. And all of these three things, thought stopping and redirection, reframing, what can I control, what can I control, they really kind of fall under the umbrella of mindfulness. And mindfulness is simply the fact or the idea of being present to what's happening right here, right now. We're not thinking about the past and ruminating about what's happened then. We're not thinking about the future and what may or may not happen. We're thinking about what's going on right here in front of us. So mindfulness is really key for managing anxiety in some ways. Another kind of upstairs brain intervention to kind of help prevent anxiety or manage anxiety before it gets full blown is to think about times that we've been resilient or times that we've been successful. If we're dealing with a new circumstance and we're really nervous about it, if we're moving or we're taking on a new job or, something that really kind of has us worried and we're uncertain about, going back and reflecting on times where we've been successful with that. It doesn't have to be a huge success, just something that reminds you that you have the capability to get through this. You've faced things before and you've come out on top, or you've figured them out, or you've moved past them. Resilience is really key, and sometimes I think it gets overlooked a little bit. There's all sorts of new schools of thought talking about positive psychology, rather than focusing on what went wrong, focusing on what you've done right and what are some skills that have worked for you and have been beneficial. I think the two in combination are really key and really important. Nobody wants to go through difficult times. You don't wish bad things or trauma on anybody. But we know life isn't perfect, and we know that things happen in life that we really could have done without, to say the least. That being said, when these things happen and when we work through them and we come out on the other side, that builds resiliency. It's horrible and painful to have to go through it, but it also reinforces to us that we're capable, that we have the strength to make it through. We have the tools. We're able to do that. And that kind of helps us then in later times when we're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. If we take a step back and we think, okay, but I've done this before, I've gotten through this before, that can kind of help reassure us and give us some power within ourselves. Again, not saying that people have to or should go through difficult times, but avoiding these things doesn't really serve us. If I have a fear of public speaking and I avoid it for my whole life, somehow get out of public speaking in classes and, I take a job where I don't have to do any public speaking and I never go out or do anything. That kind of feels good because we don't have to deal with the thing that makes us scared or makes us nervous. But at the same time, we're not really giving ourselves a chance to grow and a chance to build that resiliency. If I face it and I do it, I could be really nervous, really scared, I'm a mess, I'm sweating, I'm flush, I feel like I'm gonna faint. but I can get through it and I can do it. And once I do that, I know I've proven to myself, if I'm learning to ride a bike and I fall off and I scrape my knee, I may say, oh, I don't want to do that again. That was too much. That was scary. But if I talk myself into getting back on that bike, maybe this time I wobble a little bit, but I'm able to catch myself. And so that tells me, okay, not every time I get on a bike, I'm going to fall and skin my knee. This time it went a little bit better. So let me try it again and see if it can be even better. So I get back on, and before you know it, I'm riding my bike. And I learned riding a bike isn't necessarily bad or scary. Riding a bike is something that I can overcome. I can do. I can maybe even learn to enjoy. So I think that's really important when we talk about anxiety and we talk about building our resilience and building our brain structure. The great thing is that we can do this throughout our life with neuroplasticity, change our thoughts and our patterns and how we react to things. So again, thinking about times that, yeah, this is a really tough, uncertain time now, but I've gotten through other uncertain times and I've come out on top. I can always rebuild. I can always move forward. That can kind of help calm us instead of going over to the rabbit hole of, this is going to be horrible. I'm never going to be able to recover. This is a disaster. Rather than going down that path and then activating our whole process, we can kind of stop ourselves and say, yeah, I can't tell the future. I can't control the future, but I know when faced with adversity in the past, I've been able to do it. So that is another upstairs brain based intervention. Visualization is another one. Visualization is a little bit of upstairs and downstairs. Again, the amygdala doesn't necessarily know, our downstairs brain doesn't necessarily know what's real and happening and what's not. It's kind of like if you read a book or watch a movie, and maybe something really great happens in the movie or in the book, and you feel really happy about it. And for the next couple hours, you're feeling really good and you don't know why. Or if you're reading or watching something really sad and, the movie ends or the book ends and you go about your business and go about your life, but you kind of have this sad feeling kind of lingering with you. That's your downstairs brain. Again, it said, oh, sad, this is bad, or oh, happy, okay. And it ran with it. So if we visualize positive things, if we think that through, our amygdala is going to feed off of that. It's going to go with that and say, okay, calm, peaceful, positive, okay. Because remember, our downstairs brain isn't just about those negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear. It's also where happiness, love, excitement, all those sorts of things lie. So we can use that to our advantage. One very common visualization that I use a lot is helping people find a calm place. This can vary. This can be a real place that you've actually been to. It can be a place you've imagined or seen in a movie or read about in a book, but just somewhere where you can feel at peace. Nothing negative. People will think about nature, mountains, rivers, lakes, oceans, beaches, those sorts of things. Some people may think of their grandma's house. Some people may think of, their favorite vacation spot. The possibilities are really endless so long as it holds a positive connotation for you. So just kind of taking a minute and again, sinking in, doing a little bit of a meditation or a visualization on what makes you happy, what makes you feel safe and calm and positive. It's best to kind of run through the five senses. In this calm place, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? What can I touch? If I'm on the beach, am I feeling the sand granules? Am I feeling the wind blowing? What's going on in this situation? And then if appropriate, taste. What do I taste in this place? If I'm at a restaurant I love, or again on the beach, maybe eating ice cream or a slushie or something. It's really about building this full sensory picture of something calming and something positive and going with that. Things that you may think about, if it doesn't cause too much anxiety again, is what do I want life to look like in 3 months? Once hopefully we go over this hump and COVID-19 is in our rear view mirror, what do I want my life to look like? Do I want to have my business back open? Do I want to see myself succeeding in school or succeeding at work, going and having picnics with family and friends? And again, we want this to be a positive experience. So really imagining things. You can imagine inspiring or loving people, again, real or imagined, who are in your life or who are not, that are able to provide some comfort. So really visualization, again, yeah, it's not real. It's not happening in the moment. We're not in that calm place specifically or with that person. But again, downstairs brain doesn't know that. If you're feeding thoughts and cognitions and beliefs to the downstairs brain that are positive, calm, safe, happy, the downstairs brain is going to roll with that, and you're not going to hopefully feel as anxious. Tapping while you're doing this is also another thing that can be really beneficial. Tapping is going back and forth. I know you can see my shoulders, so I'll do it up here. If we go back, forth, just like that. Slow, steady, calm. You know, we don't want to be like this. Some people will do this, and that's not what we want. We want back and forth, back and forth. You can give yourself, especially in these times when we're social distancing, you can give yourself a little hug while we do it. Feel a little physical affection, even if it's from yourself. Some people, and I know you can't see down here, but some people will tap on their knees or their thighs back and forth. Some people, if they're in a public place and they don't really want to be obvious about it, they do their feet. Tapping back and forth. And as long as you think positive or calming thoughts while you do this, that will help to solidify that and grow. This is a principle, if you're familiar with EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing theory, this is kind of the same principle. We don't exactly know how the brain works, but we think part of the brain's natural healing is back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Sleep is so very important. I haven't talked about sleep at all, but getting a good night's sleep, not just napping or catnapping or resting, but getting in that deep sleep where you have REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. When we're asleep with rapid eye movement, our eyes are moving back and forth and we don't even know it. We think, again, we can't really prove because it's hard to get into a living brain, but we think that this back and forth, this REM sleep, has healing properties. It allows us to go ahead and filter through our day, filter through our emotions, put things where they belong in our brain, you know, file this in past, file this under happy memories, file this under sad memories. Rather than everything being in our brain up front ready to go, it allows us to put things where they belong. If our mind is like a filing cabinet, we might say. So using that principle of REM sleep, but doing it while we're awake, doing it while we're focused on a positive, calming thing. And again, tapping back and forth, that can really help. You know, what do we do with babies? Back and forth, we rock them back and forth. That back, forth motion has some calming properties as well. And again, if you're going back to talking about getting on board with the parasympathetic nervous system, that can really help and be beneficial as well. A really great resource that you could use for some visualizations, for some imagining and resourcing is Tapping In by Laurel Parnell. I'm a big fan of her work. I've had this book for a while and draw from it. Full of different scenarios or scripts or instructions on building these positive scenarios or positive people. Definitely worth taking a look at if tapping in is something that you're interested in and learning more about and doing. Just a note too, these books and authors that I'm mentioning, don't know them, don't get any financial remuneration from them. It'd be fantastic to meet them, but nothing there, just books and work that I find to be really beneficial, that I really believe in. So I want to share those resources with you. So we're coming up to 40 minutes now. I appreciate you hanging in here with me. I know I've kind of covered a lot. My eyes keep going up because I kind of have my script here up above me, so I stay on track. Hopefully this has given you some productive information. Hopefully it helps you at a very basic level understand what's going on in your brain and the process that emotions and thoughts, how they interact, and how our bodies react, having some insight into that. And also hopefully some techniques, some recognition how, yeah, thoughts do impact how we react. We don't have total control over our brains to where we can say, I'm never going to think a negative thought and I'm never going to, do this or do that. Yeah, we can't control our brains to that extent. Things are going to come up. Life is going to happen. We're gonna feel sad, mad, scared about things. And like I said at the beginning, those things aren't bad. Anger isn't bad. I know this isn't a video about anger. Maybe I'll do one of those at some point too. But again, the emotion itself isn't bad. It's natural. It's there for a reason. It's telling us something. It's an alarm system. It's how we react to the emotion. If we let it overwhelm us and dictate what we do is when we run into the problems with emotions. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to share with you in this video. I don't think so. I think I covered most of the basics. Again, I really wish the live stream would have worked out. I would have loved to have been able to go back and forth and communicate and take questions and everything. Hopefully someday I will be able to figure that out. So maybe we can do a live stream on another topic again someday and get some interaction. But again, my apologies. I'm sure hopefully people were waiting at 6 o'clock to engage. If you were, I thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry it didn't quite work out that way. I guess I didn't really introduce myself. I am a mental health counselor in Lake Havasu City. I have my own practice. So if you're looking for something kind of beyond just this basic information, if you have mental health needs or concerns, give me a call and we can set up an intake. If there's something that you want to work on in your life specifically, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm all about kind of empowering people with knowledge and insight to live their best lives. Like I said, this is common sense, but it's hard to implement sometimes on your own. And that's when I come in, and I'm happy to come in and walk that journey with you. I wish everyone safety and good health, both physical, mental, and economic health. I know it's hard out there for people with businesses, especially that things are shut down. Like I said, hopefully we'll get over this hump soon and we'll be able to go back to enjoying each other, enjoying our great businesses, enjoying nature together. Stay safe. I will hopefully talk to y'all soon. Like I said, I'm hoping to be a little bit more active here on YouTube, if only with recorded videos and not live stream until I can figure that out. So take care, have a great night, and thanks for listening. If you have any questions or, any feedback or anything, you probably can't see that because of the light. And it's backwards. Okay, didn't work that out. My email is alexiswolfcounseling@gmail.com. So what can I say? Life is a learning experience and we get through it and we build resiliency. So you guys take care, have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon.